Okay. Hello, everyone. Hopefully this is working and we can have our weekly catch-up about languages. It's always a pleasure to come online about languages. It's my favorite topic. So, and I hope it's yours too. Of course, this week has been a busy week. It's been a busy few months, strangely enough, with this lockdown. Anyone would think things would be quieter, but actually I've had a lot more going on. I think possibly as well because I've been keeping myself busy. How have you all been doing with the lockdown, with your language learning and everything else? Have you been? Hello, everyone joining. Have you been keeping busy as well? Hello. I think that actually one of the cool things. Hello there. Thank you very much. Yeah, one of the really cool things about the sort of recent turn of events is that it's kind of made me consider some of the things that I want to do as well. So I've kind of looked again at what things that are important to me with languages and stuff, and that's been a really, really cool time for me to do that. And I think so much stress. Yeah, I can feel it's a lot of stress. There is a lot of stress, and I think the obvious things to point out are going to be the negatives about the current situation, right? At the moment, I'm kind of stuck where I am. I can't really go anywhere. But what I would say is that with this, it's been really cool to start looking at things and taking stock of what we're learning, why we're learning it, and it's been like for me. So I see here the non-polyglot guy has said that he's been looking at Swahili again. Wow, cool. Yeah, I've kind of gone through this cycle now where I think because I'm not speaking some of the languages I usually speak outside, one of them being Albanian, because normally in Skopje you can speak Albanian, and I don't get to speak Albanian now because Macedonian is the language. It's the language. There are many languages here where I am at the moment, and one of them is Albanian. Another one, the one that I use most, is Macedonian, and that's my home language. Where am I from? I'm from the United Kingdom. Is where I'm from, and but my home language is Macedonian because my wife is from here, and I usually speak Albanian outside every now and again, but not with this pandemic. It's not been possible to go out so much, so I haven't been able to use it. So it's really focused my attention on, okay, what's important to me when this is all over? What do I want to be able to do? And I thought, well, actually, what I'd like to be able to do is try and get some more meaningful conversations in Albanian going. And so it's kind of focused my mind a little bit on that. Same with Turkish. I've kind of had this thing in my head now, I want to improve my Turkish. And the same with Greek, because Greek is also a language that's close by. I mean, Greece is only a few hours down the road in the car. So it's very close. How's my Persian going? My Persian is going okay. It's slowly. I have lessons now on a Sunday for Persian, and I really enjoy it. I still don't feel that I speak it, though. It's been, maybe a month or so, and I'm really not speaking it yet, no. It takes time, it really does. I mean, there are lots of words now that I know, and there are some things that I know, of course, but actual speaking the language, no, I can say bits and bobs, and I do during my classes. I play with the language, and I try and put sentences together and things. I get things wrong a lot, but it's been a lot of fun. And I mean, this is the thing with doing these kind of things online now during this period, has just really focused my energy on things that I want to be able to do when I come out of it. Usually, I would be somewhere else for the summer because it's very hot in the Balkans in the summer, and I'm not a huge fan of the very hot weather. I prefer cooler weather during the summer. Is it hard to learn Mandarin Chinese? Well, depends what you want to do with it. I actually don't think it's particularly hard to start saying things in Mandarin. Oh, what's this? Heritage, do you tackle any languages with different scripts? Yes, I do, ND. Thank you very much. Wow. I've not seen this thing that you can... I'm seeing money on here. Oh, wow. Okay. I've not seen this before, so do excuse me on YouTube. I'm learning Persian at the moment, and that has a different script. I've learned Mandarin Chinese before, which also has a different script, and also Arabic and Georgian and Hebrew and Greek and obviously Cyrillic script, which for me is almost like a native script now because I've been using it for a long time. And then also I can read Georgian, and I've studied Armenian, which has a different script. I've studied Thai, which has a different script. I'm trying to think if there are any other different scripts. I've studied quite a few of the different scripts. I don't tend to worry too much about it. I've gone through a bit of Hindi with different scripts, but I'm not very good at it. Hi Zafir, merhaba. You're learning Turkish. Wow, well done. That's so cool. How are you getting on with it? Are you enjoying your Turkish? This is so cool. Okay, I've never seen so many messages so quickly. So please do excuse me if I take a little bit of time to get to your messages. I will pay attention. YouTube's throwing these new colored things at me now with prices in. I don't know, don't really follow it very much, but thank you. I think that's that super question, isn't it? And wow, I appreciate the support because that's very, very kind. Thank you. But of course, I miss the contracts. Yeah, language cafes, of course, Olga, I miss that kind of thing too. Going into a cafe, talking to people. This is kind of why I started doing this with Albanian, Turkish, and Greek, because they're languages that I would normally get to use, and I just don't at the moment because of what's going on. Usually we go to Greece fairly often, actually, and it's very close by. But my the home languages are not such a problem. Also, I mean, we're sort of we would love to go back into Bulgaria. In fact, we normally kind of split time within Bulgaria as well. So it's kind of a bit of a shame for us at the moment. We can't really do anything in Bulgaria, and we love Bulgaria. What do you think? Why is Lithuanian one of the more popular languages? Why is Lithuanian one of the more popular languages? I think that people like it because it's archaic. A lot of linguists get into Lithuanian because of its link and to Proto-Indo-European language. They say that it's retained a lot of the original features of Proto-Indo-European. So it's interesting for linguists and for that reason. Persian is going. Have I ever studied Old Norse? Olga, I did. I had Old Norse, was part of my degree. In fact, I did 2 semesters, so a full year of Old Norse. I did well, it's called Old Icelandic, but it's the same thing. And we studied the Sagas, and we had to translate the Sagas from Old Icelandic into English, and then back again as part of the course. It's a lot of fun, actually. I really liked studying languages that way. It was a lot of fun for me. So let me just see if I've got any more questions here. I can see easily. Which language is best? I don't know. You've written that quite a few times. I don't know. There is no best language. You're kind of flooding that there a little bit. Maybe not ask the question so many times. There is no best language. Sort of. There are a lot of languages that are very nice, and it depends which one you particularly like. I'm just going to have a look on Facebook just to check to see if there's any questions on here that I've missed. Fine, Chris. Konositatu. Xin chào. Okay, nice to see you. Chash, which resources do you recommend for Hebrew? Hebrew, very easy. I think I've shown this before. I may have shown this before. I recommend Prologue books. So this is the one that they use if you make Aliyah to Israel. That's Aliyah is for Jewish people that go and live in Israel, and they teach it with this book, which is well, I don't know if they use this exact book, but it's basically Hebrew, and it takes I think a year to go through, and this is a really, really good book. It's called the Ulpan course. So it says here, Ivrit Ulpan, or Ulpan Ivrit, should I say. And this is probably the best course I know for any language. It really works well. It just really works well, and should be copied more often. They have it for Welsh. I'm just seeing I've got my Welsh one as well. I had a Welsh one somewhere, and now I'm not going to be able to find it because I'm looking for it. But yeah, Wales copied this idea and used Ulpan for Welsh, and it works very, very well as well. So this is what I recommend. There is, if you look for these guys on, I don't know if you can read Hebrew, but this says Prologue, Prolog. If you look for on like the app stores and stuff, you'll find some of their other materials. They've got kind of a basic introduction, which takes this kind of like video type course as well. So the videos that go with this book as well on here, so you can go through. It's pretty cool. I didn't go through the whole of this. I went through the other course that they have because I was going to travel to Israel. Well, I was going to travel, and I had friends as well, so I wanted to be able to speak. So yes, that was kind of it for Hebrew. But yeah, I recommend that. The other books, obviously, that you can get hold of probably more easily are going to be your Asimil, which is quite a good book for Hebrew. And then you've got your Teach Yourself. You've got your Colloquial. Colloquial is pretty good as well, actually. I mean, I usually say, to people about Teach Yourself, but actually Colloquial's got quite a good book for Hebrew, particularly. But this is my absolute favorite is the Prologue stuff for Hebrew. I think that they have the best resources. Siarad Cymraeg o gwbl. O, dwi'n siarad Cymraeg. Dwi'n wir, dwi'n siarad Cymraeg, Chris. Oes ti'n siarad Cymraeg hefyd? Wel, ti'n dod? Okay. Let me see. Z Toronto, pozdrawiam z Toronto. Pozdrawiam. Okay. Bonjour from Denmark, from French, Russian, TS. Okay. Wow, nice to see you, Maria. Nice to see you. Wow, Marie-Sophie. C'est chouette. Do you like reading the old sagas? I did enjoy reading the old sagas, actually. I thought they were a lot of fun. It's quite cool to go through things like that because it's very basic literature. I mean, the way they're written is it's kind of, and it was the summer and we went back to Norway, and it was the winter and we went back to Iceland, and it was kind of cool, but also pretty interesting for me to study that kind of thing. I enjoyed it a lot. I think just because it's, you're reading something really old, and I guess it's kind of like part of history, isn't it? You're reading something like, it's super cool to read things like the old sagas. I think I definitely didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I was actually more interested. I signed up for my degree because I was interested in Icelandic, and I really wanted to speak Icelandic. And the language that we ended up having at university was Old Icelandic, and I actually quite enjoyed it. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested, have a go at it. Okay, tips for speaking. I'm struggling with this. I think speaking, the important thing is to take it slowly, to not put pressure on yourself. I'm just getting, okay, 1 second. I'm just going to have to, 1 sec. Okay, I'm just, I was getting a lot of spam messages, unfortunately, on YouTube, so just had to put someone on timeout, which I've never had to do. Okay, so that's done, and now I can concentrate on your messages. Which is better, asking you or teach yourself? There is no better. I'm not a big. I know it kind of doesn't answer the question in the way you possibly want me to answer the question. But I don't believe in a better or worse from many of these things. I think they're so subjective, and I think it depends on what you like, and it depends on your style. It depends on so many things that I would say, yeah, Assimil, sometimes some of the courses for Assimil, I can definitely feel more an affinity with than other courses. And sometimes it's teach yourself that I feel more of an affinity for. And the same with it, even for colloquial or for other books. What I'd say is I tend to start out on these books that are kind of more mainstream and sold abroad, and I tend to gravitate later towards locally sourced materials. That's where I end up in the end. So it doesn't always end up like this. I showed this prologue book. So I started out on some of the other stuff, and then I kind of naturally moved towards these. I was looking for more explanations or something to sort of get more experience of a certain topic or of a grammatical point or whatever else. So I would use other books, and I end up going towards these locally sourced materials, which I find really, really useful. Что не будет по-русски. Скажите, что будет по-русски. Здравствуйте. Я не знаю, как я могу сказать. Ну, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Как дела? Хорошо? Все нормально? По-русски тоже, да, говорю. Но сейчас здесь, в Македонии, очень, очень редко говорю по-русски, потому что, здесь, в принципе, нет русского. So, can you speak Yoruba? No, I cannot speak Yoruba. Not yet. Who knows, one day, maybe I will get to Yoruba. Can you speak Yoruba? That sounds like a cool language to be able to speak. There are so many languages in Africa that I would love to learn. It would be incredible to speak more African languages. I do go through this thing, right? I went through, when I was in Southern Africa, I bought a book on Shona and I bought a book on Xhosa. And yeah, that'd be really cool to learn some African languages. I would love to go back to Africa and spend more time there. At the moment, it's just very difficult from here with connections, flights, and so I tend to learn languages where I can go and speak them, or if I use them for work or whatever else. Saludos desde México. México. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Todo bien? ¿Qué tal en México? Sans parler créole. Je comprends le créole, mais je parle pas. Je peux pas, en fait. Je suis pas étudié, mais je sais lire. Je suis capable de lire quelque chose, quoi. Donc, je comprends, mais je parle pas. J'aimerais bien apprendre un jour. Je parle le français européen et je parle le québécois un peu. C'est tout. Avec le français, ce que je fais. Wow. I'm getting a lot of hellos. Hello. Let me see if I can read this. It's unfortunately, sometimes it's difficult for me to read the words, but I'm doing my best. What percentage of meaning should be understood? On meaningful, comprehensible input, what percentage of meaning should be understood? 80%, 30%? Good question. I would say the point of this comprehensible input, and depending on the language, depending on the content, depending on many, many things, it's difficult to say a percentage exactly. I don't often think about a percentage. What I tend to do is I feel that it's just white noise, or kind of the version of white noise on a page where you're just looking, it looks like nonsense. Then I think it's possibly time to just go through it slowly but surely, so that at least you get something from it. The only time that I think it's appropriate really to just listen to something without understanding it is if you're listening out for the odd word and you're doing it for that reason, or if you're listening for the rhythm of the language. But to just do it all the time constantly without understanding a thing, that would, for me, that's kind of a little bit missing the point for me with language learning. So I tend to say that I think it's good to learn properly. So to learn properly, what I mean is to at least understand the general gist of what you're reading. Now, you may be able to do that with 70% of it. It may be 60, maybe 70%, maybe 80, maybe 90. It depends on what you're reading. Because if you consider that if you're reading a novel, for example, and a lot of the words are adjectives or adverbs that just describe the actions, then it could well be quite a low percentage of the words that you understand, and you can still follow the story. But if it's something more technical and you don't follow the words that are important to understand the technicalities and what the message is, then the percentage could be higher. So it's a difficult question to answer in just one. I hope that helps, though. Have you ever listened to music in a language you spoke, but you thought about learning? Okay. Yeah, it's really cool. If you listen to you get hooked into a language through music. I think it's a really, really nice thing. Music is for me a huge part of the learning process. I mean, I love music and I love singing, much to the chagrin of my poor enduring wife and daughter. They have to put up with me singing, unfortunately. But yes, I do like music and I do like singing. Yes, it's. I'm sure I have an audience out there somewhere. How do you balance out the languages throughout your day? I kind of don't. So I don't set specific times to speak languages or to. I tend to just use them because I use them for my life and my work just normally anyway. And then what I'm doing recently actually is I'm going through the link stories. They have like to 60 stories in most of the languages on link. And at the moment, I've just set myself this goal to go through. I'm going through about 30 of the link languages and just going through all of the stories. I'm halfway through now, near enough, because it's like July. So I decided I'd do this July and August. That takes about 3 hours a day of my time. So I do that kind of a little bit in the morning and before I start work, and a little bit in the evening after I finish. I start with the languages I'm focusing on. So that would be, at the moment, the languages I'm kind of more concerned about doing a little bit every day with are Greek, Turkish, Indonesian, and Persian. So I do those every day for sure. And then the other ones I have been doing pretty much every day. I've missed maybe one day or here and there, but not really missed much, to be honest. And I find that going through those stories just one a day is actually quite useful for me. But yeah, that's about 3 hours, and I just go through them all in order. I start with those four, and then I start going in alphabetical order. I start with actually Belarusian. I'd never studied Belarusian or Ukrainian before, and I decided to just go through them because I can already understand them quite well. And so I've been going through those, and then if I have time, I do Arabic too. But I find that Arabic does take me a lot more time because I have to read it, and I like to read the Arabic properly. Whereas I can just listen to and follow along very quickly in languages like Ukrainian or Belarusian. I already understand it pretty much, like 98% of what I hear. When in these stories, not the whole language, of course. I've not had enough experience to say that. What kind of music do I like to listen to? Anything and everything. I like a lot of music. I've been enjoying some Afrikaans music recently. I quite like Afrikaans in songs. I also like listening to Disney music in Maori. So and I listen to quite a lot. I've been listening to some Macedonian folk music as well, because every time you go to a wedding or to an occasion in North Macedonia, you hear the same kinds of songs, and I've decided it's time that I actually learnt the lyrics. I'd never done it before, and I felt a little bit embarrassed last time I went out, and and I couldn't sing along. I recognize them and I understand them, but I've never learnt them. So I decided that maybe I should try and learn these Macedonian lyrics, which is a bit weird. It's not a language I'm studying, clearly, because I've been speaking it for like 15 years at home. So it's a language I'm very, very comfortable in. But still, it's nice. Okay. Veliki pozdrav. Hvala ti puno. Let me see. Denmark. Let me see if I can see any other questions that I have here on Facebook. Hey, Richard. Recommendations for Arabic materials. Arabic materials. So the ones that we used at university were Mastering Arabic from, was it? I don't think it's Routledge. I'm trying to think of, Palgrave. Palgrave is the publisher. And we use those, Mastering Arabic from Palgrave, at university. They were quite good. The very first university that I went to for Arabic was in Leiden in the Netherlands. And we used, actually, the teacher used the Linguaphone texts to teach me Arabic, which I thought was quite good. Professor Arguelles really raves about the Linguaphone courses. He loves them because they use the same text in every single course. You may be able to find them online. I've got some of them up here, actually. I've got the Japanese one, and I've got the Irish one. The one that he had, he just gave me printouts of the text that he had, but he had the actual original. I never had the Arabic version myself as a full sort of book for myself to keep at home. Okay. L'ilmo d'ivrit. Okay. I'm just okay. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Okay. Ata ohev ללמוד עברית. Okay, that would be very cool. Eric, גם אני רוצה לדבר עברית יותר טוב. אני אוהב את השפה הזאת. So that would be very nice. Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate the offer. So Lina, okay, Lina, nice to see you. Yes, it is true subjective. Lina, you're such a cool inspiration as well for all language learners out there. Nice to see you on this live. Thank you for joining. Lina did a lovely interview with me in Ljubljana a couple of years ago, and we spoke in a number of languages together. She speaks, she's Latvian and grew up in Australia, if I'm right, and also now lives in Germany. So she speaks obviously Russian as well as Latvian, English, German, and Spanish, and a number of other languages as well. I don't want to sort of make a full list because I'll miss some off. But she's amazing, and she's got a great, great motivational, sort of motivational on language channel on Instagram. So do check her out. She's fantastic. Chris, tell us more about your Scots language course. Oh, Chris, and so it's so funny that you mentioned that. Okay, so from next week, some of you have actually talked to me about this during the lives, about whether I speak Scots or whether I can do a Scots accent. And I've done one before for you, haven't I? I've done this Scots accent that I can kind of do a little bit. That's not great. It's okay. But I can't speak Scots. I haven't learned Scots. So no, I've never learned Scots, but I can kind of do this vague, almost, I hope not too offensive Scottish accent when I try. But yes, from the 3rd of August, I'm going to be doing a course, a 3-week course in Scots to learn to speak and write, hopefully, Scots. So I will definitely be practicing that with you. If you any Scots speakers out there that want to practice with me, I would be very, very happy. I love the idea of learning to speak Scots properly and actually getting the grammar right instead of just speaking Scottish English or my version of Scottish English with a few bits of Scots words. I'd like to speak proper Scots. So yes, that would be very cool. Which language is more complicated, more difficult to learn for a native English speaker, Slovene or Albanian? Tim, that is a very tough question to answer. Slovene or Albanian? Um, that's Hobson's choice, honestly. I don't think that either are too difficult to learn for an English speaker. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Seriously, I mean, like, there's nothing particularly special about me. So, and I have got to a point with Slovene where I could speak. The moment I would be really stretching myself and making a lot of silly mistakes and sounding more like a Serb trying to speak Slovene if I tried it now. Albanian I speak a lot better because of where I am at the moment. And I don't know which is easier or harder. I don't know. Both have got kind of weird things about them that for a native English speaker take a bit of getting used to. Slovene would definitely be the jewel. They have the jewel in Slovene, which is midva, vidva, vidve, midve, oni dva, oni dve. And that takes a lot of getting used to, because Slovene is the only language in the Indo-European language family that has a full dual system in place, using it with sort of adjectives and nouns and verbs and pronouns and the full shebang. Whereas in other languages, it only exists in small portions. So we have a type of dual left over, the remnants of the dual left over in Macedonian too, and in Serbian and in Bulgarian. And I'm trying to think if there are any others that I know that it's definitely in. But for those ones, definitely they have it, because they have this A ending that you add to if you say the number 2, like dva časa instead of a full. So čas is like an hour or time, and časovi is like more of them plural, but dva časa is two hours, for example. So yeah, we do still have them, but Slovene has it like really like Arabic almost. Well, pretty much like Arabic. It has it, and so it's pretty full on. Albanian it has some funky things with which are typical of kind of Balkan languages, this part of the Balkans anyway, where they have an indefinite object. The definite. What I'm saying? Sorry, just a second. So yeah, the definite pronoun. So the will go at the end. It will be back ended. Sorry, my brain's going completely haywire. But yeah, so they'll do that. They'll back end. So the for example, like the word for in Albanian for a bird is zog, and then the bird is zogu. And in Macedonian we do that too. So it's ptica, and then is bird, and pticata is the bird. And you do it in Albanian as well, and you do it in Bulgarian, and you do it in. I think that's it in these languages, and then you also do it in the Scandinavian languages too. So all the Scandinavians do that too, with the definite article at the end. The definite article, there we go. The definite article goes at the end of the noun or adjectives, depending in this part of the world. So that takes a bit of getting used to, and Slovene doesn't do that, which makes it feel a little bit more approachable, I guess. And then the way you build sentences in Albanian doesn't feel quite the same either, because you have the infinitive is lacking, I guess, for want of a better word. You don't have kind of an infinitive form in the same way as you do in say, Slovene, or we're used to in English, like I want to go. In Slovene, you would follow the same pattern as in English, I want to go. Whereas you can't do that in Albanian or Macedonian or Serbia. Well, Serbian you can if you want, depending on how you speak Serbian. Croatian, you do this as well, in the same way as Slovene, generally, but you can also follow a more Serbian pattern if you want. And then you also do that in Romanian and in Greek and in Bulgarian too. So in those languages where you don't follow this I want to go, you say I want, I go, is how you construct it. I want that I go. And what they do is they use a subjunctive often as the second verb. So you see this quite a lot. I gave quite a long answer to that, didn't I? But yes, difficult to say which is more difficult. I think it's a hard question. Richard, the Dutch book you recommend should be here in the next few days. Fantastic, Nathan. Let me know how you get on with it. I'd be interested to know the Prisma one. That was definitely the one I used in the beginning with my Dutch. Fantastic. Have you ever stayed with a resource before going into another? So how long do I stay with a resource before going on to another? I tend to I go with a resource as long as I'm interested in it, and when I notice that the resource is this reason I'm not going to the language, sometimes it happens. It doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does happen, and I find something that I'm more interested in. I would rather carry on with the learning than carry on with the course just for the sake of completing a course, if that makes sense. I'm not really one for doing something that I don't like doing and ending up hating what I'm doing. I'd rather just switch over to some other materials if I feel I need some other materials. So in fact, I've been doing that lately with Persian. So I was using the Asimil book in the beginning. I did the first maybe 25, 30 lessons, and then came to the third of the book. And then I got into the link stories and I started going through those instead. And I'll probably go back to the Asimil and dip back into it. But for now, I kind of don't want to go through all of them together because that's a bit chaotic. I like to go from one to the other and then potentially back again. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of enjoying the link stories at the moment, which is where I am. How do I use Asimil? I pretty much use Asimil as it describes. So I will go through the stories and I will work out what they mean and translate them in my head. But I tend not to do it all written down, which is kind of how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to write them down and then translate them back in the end. I don't tend to do that so much, but I do consider it and consider how to go back. So I will kind of do it in my head, and I will just write out the dialogues. That's kind of not exactly how they. So yeah, basically, I don't do what they tell me to do. I do part of what they tell me to do. I don't do everything they tell me to do. I kind of put my own little spin on it, I guess. So that's what I do. What parts of Spain have I been to? Many. I've been to. Let's see. I've lived in Malaga and I've lived in Madrid. And I've been to Catalonia, and I've been to Los Picos de Europa in Asturias, and I've been to the Basque Country, and I've been to Navarra, and I've been to Galicia, and I think that's about it. A little bit into Murcia, I think I've been, and then Valencia as well. So yeah, quite a lot of Spain actually, and then some of the Canary Islands and the Balearic Islands as well. Have I studied Frisian? Yes, I have, Edward. I studied Frisian on one of these online 3-week things that they have on Future Learn. They have Frisian. They have a cool Frisian course, and I did that. I did it a few years ago. It was very new then, and when I did it, I really enjoyed it. It kind of went in. I studied it, but I've never had to use it, and I've never been able to retain it. So it's kind of gone back out again. I will eventually go back through the material and if I need it, and kind of do it that way. But yes, I really enjoyed it. Cool. You're studying Lithuanian. Have any tips on Lithuanian? It's one of the languages I've not really studied, Lithuanian. A lot of people do study it. I haven't. But yes, I like it. I like the sound of it. I just remember achu. Achu is thank you in Lithuanian. And I remember it because it sounds like achoo, like you're sneezing. And I remember really odd words like gražus, which, and I understand some of the words because of I've studied Latvian, but no, I don't speak and haven't really studied Lithuanian. Hopefully one day I'll get to it and see what the fuss is about with all these linguists studying Lithuanian. Russian music. Do you recommend for learning Russian? It's been a long time since I've listened to Russian music. Trying to think if there's anything I can think of that maybe somebody else might be able to give some tips in the chat, actually, if they've got any recommendations for Russian music. I'm trying to think if I did have any that I could recommend. Not really. I do find the Disney songs, if you like, or you can at least put up with the Disney songs. Disney songs are pretty cool in different languages because they're very clear. So if you like those, they're quite cool. Oh, thank you. I've got a nice accent in Hebrew. I've just seen that. Well, thank you very much. I didn't realize I had a good accent in Hebrew. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Mahalia, okay. Okay. Você fala português também? Sim, falo, sim. Aprendi português na universidade. E também aprendi português do Brasil quando fui para o Brasil. Então, para falar assim também. Mas aprender português de Portugal, na universidade. Salam, Richard. I am Turkish English student and I want to study mostly phonetics. Are there any languages you can suggest for me to research or you find interesting? Phonetics. I guess some of your neighbors would be quite cool to learn for interesting interesting sounds. I mean, Georgian, for example. I mean, wow. Those kinds of languages I find fascinating because they've got loads of like guttural sounds, and they've got the consonant clusters, and yeah, I think they're pretty interesting to look at. Have you looked at any of those before? For learning Persian, so yeah, it was Asimil at the very start. I was using Asimil, and now I'm using the link stories. So link, I'll write that down because I'm being asked that. There we go. Link. How do I memorize vocabulary, Edward? I do it in as I come across it. So I don't tend to sit there and learn lists of vocabulary. I have done that in the past. I have sat there and studied lists of vocabulary when I want to know certain words, particularly things like. I find that useful for things like learning the names of trees, learning the names of different types of fish or birds or animals, because you don't tend to come across them that often if you've got an interest in those things. And then if you learn them kind of as a list, and then you start going through texts, you find that the ones that come up more often stick. But I will tell you a funny story. I always thought it was really important to know the words for all the birds, because I tend to know a lot of bird names in English and in French that I knew as a child, and so when our daughter was born, and I said to my wife, well, she'll need to know all of the birds in Macedonian as well, and my wife said, if you want to teach her, then learn them and let her know. So anyway, I learned all these bird names in Macedonian, and honestly, Macedonians do not know the names of birds in Macedonian. So I would say a word and they think I've made it up, and they're the real words. Even birds that they see in the city in Skopje, they don't know the names of them. So there's one called a wagtail, oshku en français, and in Macedonian it's tresiopavče. And this tresiopavče, the wagtail, no Macedonian here wouldn't even know. They'd think you've made up the name. And some other birds that they know as well, or they know that it's a bird, but they don't know what it looks like. They don't know the word for magpie very often, which is strachka. They don't know that. They know what a kios is, which is the word for a blackbird, but they don't. If you say the word, they know it's a bird, but they wouldn't necessarily know it's a blackbird. Like they wouldn't be able to pick it out of a list of, or sort of a set of images of birds. They wouldn't know which one it would be. Slovene learning resources. Now that is a good one, actually. There's a really cool, so look for Slon, Slovenian Online. They do have a book. I've got one here, just a second. There we go. Accidents will happen. So this is from the university in Slovenia, in Ljubljana. They did a course actually for the Polyglot conference when we took the Polyglot conference to Ljubljana. These are really cool people. If you look for Slon Online, so SLONONLINE, I think it is Slon Online. that's a really cool place for getting some Slovene material. They have actually a free introduction to Slovene, I think, on there. They've got some cool courses. Otherwise, Colloquial does Slovene, and you can get the audio free of charge on the Colloquial website, on the Routledge website, and then the book you can actually get. I've got it downloaded, I think, on my iPad. I bought a Kindle version of it. That works quite well, actually. It's a pretty good course. So that's it. There aren't many resources actually for Slovene, strangely. It's quite a big language and very, very nice language. I love Slovene. Why I moved to Macedonia? I'm married to a Macedonian. Whoever asked me for this one, yeah, I moved here because I'm married to a Macedonian. So yeah. Is it true that I'm from Britain? Originally, yes, guilty as charged. Originally from the UK. One of what the Germans call as an island ape. So yes, I'm originally from the UK. But yes, I live in. I'm at the moment I'm in North Macedonia. I married a Macedonian, and here I am at the moment. So hey, Richard, I'm having my very first italki lesson today. Good luck, Peggy. Don't be nervous. You'll be fine. I'm sure you'll have a lovely time. Which language you use it for? Spanish, Peggy, that you're having it? Any languages from neighbours? Do you want to study Greek though? Yeah, studying Greek would be quite cool actually. Yeah, in terms of if you're looking at phonology though, I think that possibly Greek isn't as interesting. I would have guessed some of those other languages would have been like the other side. Your neighbours on the other side would be more interesting because they're quite exotic, I guess, compared to Greek. But Greek is a good language. I love Greek. Greek's really pretty. Bonjour monsieur, est-ce que c'est possible pour quelqu'un d'oublier une langue maternelle? Il me dit, en fait, j'ai entendu d'histoires qu'il y a des personnes qui ont oublié la langue maternelle. C'est bien possible si on parle jamais, quoi. Oublier, tu t'oublies, hein. J'imagine que non. Mais peut-être. Je crois que c'est possible après une crise. On pourrait oublier quelque chose comme ça aussi. Ça, c'est possible. Mais juste comme ça, parce qu'on ne parle pas, c'est possible, oui. J'imagine que c'est possible, mais pas tout, hein. Moi, je dirais que ce serait très, très difficile. Tout oublier. À mon avis, c'est presque impossible, ça. Mais oublier beaucoup de la langue et avoir même un accent étranger, ça, c'est possible. J'ai entendu ça, même. Et oublier des mots aussi, ça, c'est possible, si on n'utilise pas. Okay, I'm trying to go through some more of these questions that you have. Learn languages because they give them access to those cultures. Okay, so have you not many people who learn languages because they give them access to those cultures? I think that people do often do that, actually. They learn languages because it gives them access to a culture. Or something in the culture. A lot of people get into Japanese through manga and things, and through Japanese culture, they want more access to it. I've heard that a lot. Turkish resources, please. There are so many. Depending on where you live, the best place to learn Turkish, I think, is Yunus Emre. Yunus Emre Institute does an amazing job at teaching Turkish. Otherwise, there are loads of books for Turkish. So the big names like Asimil, Teach Yourself, Colloquial all have Turkish courses. I personally used Yeni Hitit, which is a book from Turkey. It's only in Turkish, and I would possibly recommend that if you were really like hardcore, or if you were doing it with a teacher, because just looking at Turkish written in Turkish, if you don't know Turkish, the grammar is so different that it does need a bit of explanation to make it understandable. So I would say go for something that you can sort of get the basics of first, like your Teach Yourself, like your essay meal, like your colloquial, those kinds of books. Pretty good for that. Okay. You're going to marry a Turk and move to Turkey. Look at you. Turkish people are fantastic. So many nice people there. So if you're going to marry a Turk and move to Turkey, seriously, Yunus Emre Institute is your best bet. And if you go to Turkey, you can actually go on their intensive courses. So you should definitely do that. Absolutely. What a resource if you're going to get to go there. Make sure you overdose on baklava and Turkish tea. They're my favorites. I love it. I love all that stuff. Do you recommend any special book for which? I don't know what you mean about the special book, about a language or any topic. I recommend a lot of things for a lot of different things. If you want to tell me exactly what it is, I will do my best to answer the question. I'm not sure what you mean. When are you coming to Cholula? Hopefully, 2021 will be in Cholula, ready for the Polyglot Conference. I'm very excited. I love Cholula. It's a beautiful place. Favorite non-Latin alphabet for me would have to be Georgian. I think the Georgian alphabet is absolutely beautiful. And I studied Georgian because of the alphabet. Just found out that it was an absolute nightmare to learn to speak it. Sorry, Georgian. Beautiful script. Unfortunately, it took me so long to get into Georgian. I'm absolutely terrible at it. Do I know any? I actually have a book on that language. Here we go. I have an Inuit book. Ta-da! This is from Canada. I bought it in Canada. I bought it ages ago when I was at the Langfest there, about 2 or 3 years ago. And as you can see, it's still in plastic. So it shows you that I've not used it yet. One day, I tend not to take them out of plastic because if I take it out, it will ruin the book, first of all. And I'd rather keep it in until I'm ready to actually study it. So yes, I have considered dabbling in it. Cool. Let me see if I can go through. So Peggy, you're going to have your Spanish lesson. I think that's really cool that you're going to have Spanish lesson on italki. Italki is a great platform for practicing your languages and for learning with teachers. I have lessons on italki every week I do on italki. I do Persian. I do Greek, Albanian, Indonesian. I've been doing Russian a little. I had been doing a bit of Russian, practicing a little bit, but I've taken a break because Russian's one of those languages that, because it's a Slavic language and I speak a Slavic language every day at home anyway, I tend not to really need to practice that often to retain it. It just stays in my head. So yes, and then also Maori. You need to do your homework, Brian. You have Arabic in an hour. You definitely need to do your homework. And Maori, of course, yes, as well. I've been doing Maori. Maori, I don't have a particular book for it. I've got a couple of books for Maori, and I've kind of been dipping into different things, playing with them. I'm still not 100% convinced of the resources for Maori at the moment. I think more needs to be created, is what I think about Maori at the moment. What was your language of inspiration growing up? I liked all languages, and it's so terrible, this Edward. These questions, unfortunately, and terrible. I guess the first language that I really learned growing up was French after English, and I suppose that was kind of a big thing for me. I loved French as a child, and Welsh, obviously, and then I was always listening to Thai because my stepmom's Thai, so I would hear Thai a lot as well as a child. Je crois que c'est en train avec l'arabe. Ah bon? C'est vrai? Avec l'arabe? Tu parles jamais? Tu regardes pas l'internet en arabe? C'est possible, je dis pas que non, mais enfin, en ce moment, de nos jours, c'est plus facile d'écouter quelque chose ou bien lire quelque chose dans une autre langue. En ligne, c'est plus facile. Ah, je crois que c'était plus facile. C'était plus si facile à oublier une langue maternelle maintenant. Do you think it's valuable or more efficient to learn unrelated languages like German language, okay, and Latin language at the same time? So I think it's really good to, if you're doing two languages at the same time, yeah, it's good to learn ones. I wouldn't say not just languages that are not related, but languages that sound very different is quite handy. So even though, for example, Greek and Spanish are not particularly, I mean, they're related in that they're both Indo-European languages, but they're not from the same language family, like you're talking about Latin and German. But I would always say it's probably not a good idea to learn Greek and Spanish at the same time because they sound very similar. They use similar sounds, so it gets quite confusing. And I think that that's one of the things that I would say look out for. If languages sound the same or similar, that's a problem. But you can try out learning languages at the same time, see how you feel. 14 from Derby. Okay, well, cool. Thank you, Edward. You're very kind. Thank you. It's so good to see you, so young, and you're really into languages. I love it. I love it. It's really cool, Edward. Good on you. Seriously, that's really, really cool. Yeah, my daughter's only 1 year younger than you, and yeah, so it's particularly nice as a dad to see a 14-year-old online doing that. Good on you. The parents must be really proud. What's been your favorite unintended side effect of learning so many languages? My favorite unintended side effect of learning languages is kind of the etymology thing, seeing patterns in language that I love. I posted something recently on Instagram. It was about what learning languages does for you, for your mother tongue. And it was seeing the rainbow in the rain. So if you imagine your own language is just the rain is kind of colorless. You could even say it's gray in a way. It's just normal, okay? But when you learn other languages, it's like shining a light on the rain and a rainbow appears because you see all the beauty hidden in your own language and in the words around you. And that's kind of the best way I could visualize and describe it. That's the best side effect for sure. Absolutely love, love, love understanding the history of where languages have sort of mixed and meshed and why, and I love it. I really, really love that. Okay. Let me see if I can see any other questions here. Okay. As a pure beginner in Slavic languages, which language would you learn, Russian or Polish? Ooh. So in terms of complexity and being able to speak them, like, of all of the Slavic languages, I would say that the hardest three languages in the Slavic group are Polish, Czech, and Russian. And the reason I choose those three is because Russian, you don't write it exactly as you say it because there are vowel changes that you pronounce O's like A's and E's like I's and an air like an E, should I say. So it gets a bit messed up with Russian with that kind of stuff. And you don't know where the stress is on the word when you read Russian because they don't mark the stress. So that's a bit of a nightmare with Russian. Polish and Russian, generally, I'd say that it's harder to pronounce Polish correctly and well than, say, Russian, because Polish has a few more kind of similar but important differences in sounds. So that's a bit of a nightmare with Polish. Polish is at least written pretty much as it's pronounced, which is a plus. Both of them have fairly involved grammatical features in terms of inflections, so grammatical cases and things like that. If you're just going to start on any Slavic language and it's not important which one, you just want to start and have a Slavic language, and you've not studied a Slavic language before, my honest recommendation is, if you want to build up knowledge of the Slavic group, a language like Bulgarian is probably a good start, because you pick up a lot of the words. There are books to learn Bulgarian, and it's an easy language to learn as an English speaker. I think that Bulgarian is probably the easiest, in the fact that you write it as you speak. The intonation can be a bit weird because they have different stress patterns that are not indicated in written Bulgarian, but that's kind of like in Italian more. But at least it follows a regular pattern of how you spell and how you speak. The other cool thing about Bulgarian is that you get a lot of the vocabulary that you would have in, say, Russian or any other language, so you build up that base, and when you turn your attention to another Slavic language with cases and with more difficult pronunciation, at least you've kind of got that basis in place, and it's not an additional problem for you to overcome in speaking. And then finally, I'd say that in the very end, the end game with Slavic languages is actually the hardest thing about them is the verb forms and not the case systems. Case systems, yes, are challenging, but the verb forms are actually the hardest thing, because you can actually say something that sounds right, and it's not what you wanted to say. Whereas with a language like, say, in Bulgarian, you'll get used to these different verb forms a lot more easily. And then when you turn your attention to Russian or something, again, you've not got to worry about the verb forms, plus the cases, plus pronunciation, plus not writing it as you say it, plus everything else. So yeah, that's totally not what you asked. You asked me between Russian and Polish. If it's just Russian and Polish, Polish. Because it's written with the Latin script, easier to visualize if you're not used to the Cyrillic script, easier to write. There are loads of cool podcasts out there. There's Real Polish, which I can recommend. Piotr makes some fantastic material in Polish. So yeah, Polish. There we go. After all of that, people often mistake Spanish for Greek. They do. They really do. It's really strange, but it's true. It's because they just sound very similar. Even some Spanish friends of mine have heard Greek in the past and vice versa, and they've heard it from a long way away, and then they just heard the sound patterns and thought it was their own language. So yeah, not even for foreigners, but for native speakers as well. What platform do you use for italki? I use Skype. I've not used the italki classroom yet, but I hear it's good. I know Little Lake, but New Zealand Maori is related to Hawaiian. It is indeed related to Hawaiian and the Cook Islands, exactly. And yeah, that's really cool. There was an old course book. Oh, cool! I'll have to look out for that. I'll see if I can find that book. Thank you very much for that, Robert. I appreciate it. I'll copy that and see if I can find it later. Brilliant. What was the idea practical about the time spent on language? Okay. Unfortunately, I'm getting to the end of this session, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer any more questions now, but I hope that, that I've answered a lot of the questions that you had. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It was nice to see you all, as usual. Thank you very, very much, and speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.